I was so excited when I got approved on NetGalley for an arc of The Gods That Time Forgot because I've been following this author's journey on TikTok for a couple years now. I got to watch her go through writing to then trying to get an agent to then debating she should self-publish to then being picked up to be traditionally published. Like, I am so thrilled for her and honored that I got to watch her experience. It's been so inspirational. And I wanted to say, like, preface my review by saying that because I do appreciate the journey and the hard work that she has put into it, but there's a reason why I don't want to tag the author in this review, because I am going to give it's not a negative review, it's a critique. It's just a slight critique because I did on the surface enjoy this. Like, I did overall enjoy this story for the most part. It's just it was underwhelming, and I think that there was major potential because the ideas were intriguing. It's just that the fantasy elements, in my opinion, dragged the story down, and I wish someone had pushed her a little bit more with her writing. To start with the writing, it was good. It was on the cusp of being great, and there were moments that captured my attention. However, it felt like we were trapped in the mundane. There were details that should have been intriguing, but instead was shrugged off like it was any other day. And it wasn't helped that it felt like I could constantly see the author's hand moving the pieces around on the board. That the characters weren't happening to the plot was happening to them, and like they lacked agency, which is one of my biggest pet peeves with a vast majority of stories I've read over the last couple years. The characters told us that they made decisions, but not really. There were no moments of debate. There were like no pressure, no hesitancy. It was just like these things would happen, and then the characters were trying to convince us, the readers, that they had made that choice. But if you actually look at the text, they didn't make that choice. The author made it for them. And like in addition, there was so much repetition, especially with like internal monologue. For example, I want to read a little bit from my review because I have an example like, courting Richard's daughter would be good for my reputation. This is what one of the narrators had said. And then a little bit would go by and he would start talking about how he got to America. And then he would say, courting Richard's daughter would be good for my reputation. I helped an orphanage. Courting Richard's daughter would be good for my reputation. Like, I kid you not, that went on, like cyclical conversation went on for an entire chapter. Like, it was like a little bit more about his backstory, but this would be good for my reputation. Like, okay, I got it. And it was the same with the other narrator too. It was her constantly being like, well, I have to impersonate Emma, but it's like, but why? You never showed me really why you need to. Like, and the scene that was supposed to show us why she needed to was like shoehorned in. It felt unnatural, if that makes sense. So with the writing, it's just like there are minor details that the author can very easily work on and improve on. That it's just the problem was that it happens so often and all these elements kind of built on each other that it left me then just exasperated and rolling my eyes. And I think that she could definitely grow as a writer. Like, I see there's so much potential. This is her debut novel. Like, I'm not expecting excellent, but I still would have liked better because I expected more from, say, her critique partner and her developmental editor to push her to fix some of these problems. And I feel like, I don't know. I'm like, I want to put the blame on the developmental editor, but I don't think it's their fault. Like, I don't know if it's publishing just pushing things out, trying to capture, for example, the romantasy hype, and instead they're now taking away the time between the developmental editor and the author, where it would help them then create a better story, help them grow. Like, shouldn't this be a community instead of just a commercial exchange? But sadly, we're in a society where it's a commercial exchange. But getting back into like the actual story itself, the historical romance aspect of it was so good. I was enjoying that, and like it was about a headstrong girl who doesn't want to be puppeted by her social climbing mother, and a guy who's trying to achieve the American dream. Like, if she had stripped the fantasy elements and kept with just that, it would have been a really strong story, and it could have been marketed to like the Bridgerton fans, the Buccaneer fans, the Gilded Age fans. Like, I see them all over TikTok. They exist. I'm part of it. Like, I would have enjoyed this story so much more. Like, yeah, the little details like agency, little things still would have bugged me, but in all honesty, what brought my like rating of this book down below a 4-star was because of the fantasy element made it ridiculous and caused the characters to be contradictory with themselves. Like, it added details that was awkwardly took up time and still wasn't fully explained. It was just annoying, and it could have been easily replaced. Like, for example, the servants could have, instead of gossiping about her being a devil worshiper or whatever the hell they end up gossiping about with the magical elements, they could have just gossiped that her mom's an upstart and this girl was recently expelled from school. That is enough conflict there. You don't need to add the fantasy element. The fantasy element really just made everything more convoluted and just unenjoyable. Like, this is the thing where, like, I don't think everything needs to be romantasy. Why can't we just have a classic historical romance? And like I said, there's a market. If you look at the Buccaneer and Bridgerton fandom, they're massive right now. So in the end, it's tough because I think if I read this in a couple more years, maybe when I've gotten past this weird slump where a lot of books kind of are just mid, or if I'd read this a few years ago when I still was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like coming from like reading so many great books, it's just that I think this is coming out in a time where, like, I think a lot of people are starting to get frustrated, me included, that so many books are middling and feels like they should have been worked on longer, that they're being pushed forward and published too soon, that people aren't pushing the authors to be better, because not everything is dependent on just the author. Like, I don't expect the author to know and do everything. It should be a community, this writing publishing. It should be a teamwork. You should be able to work with critique partners and developmental editors to push you as an author to be better. And this book was just because of like those details I mentioned about some of the writing things that should have been like pushed by a critique partner, developmental editor, and because of the fantasy elements, this book was a struggle for me to read. It was at moments felt like I was dragging my comatose body through chapters. However, I think there is still a lot of potential for it, and I think that there is still an audience that would enjoy this story greatly, and so I would still recommend this to people to see for themselves. But for me, I was just disappointed because I had hoped for better. Instead, it's just another book reiterating that we are kind of in a weird situation with books being published right now, that I think we're just trying to push books out too hard, too fast, to then make money, and instead of actually treating it like the art it is and giving it the time and space and community that's needed to nurture and grow the author and the stories to being the best version possible. Because here's the thing, once you publish it, you can't quite, most of the time, you can't fix it. That's it in the world, and you need to move on. So it's just disappointing because a lot of these stories that I've been disappointed with for the last like 2 years are ones that I think I see the potential. They could have been excellent. They needed more time and needed to be pushed more. And so this was a very long review, but I had a lot of thoughts about this and I really wanted to express them. But yeah, like I said, I think I highly recommend you checking it out for yourself and forming your own opinion. But for me, this was just a little underwhelming, a little disappointing. Oh, but before I go, I also am not turning down this offer. I'm not giving up on this offer. I think that this is her debut book. She could still grow and become, an excellent writer. I see the potential. I think that she is on the cusp of it. I'm still going to follow her writing career and I'm still going to give her another chance. It's just this one was a little disappointing.